What makes an army cross a dangerous sea toward an unknown land, with absolutely no guarantee of return? What drives a commander to make a singular, daring decision that shatters the status quo and permanently alters the history of two entire continents? Today, we are looking at a leap of faith that transformed the political and cultural map of the world.
Welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly excited to take you on this journey today. Our focus is the epic, world-changing campaign of 711 CE, led by a man named Tariq ibn Ziyad. We're going to see exactly how a relatively small, highly mobile force crossed into Visigothic Hispania and essentially birthed a brand new civilization. The stakes were incredibly high, the odds were completely stacked against them, and the resulting history is just nothing short of breathtaking.
Chapter 1. A World Divided. The Geopolitical Chessboard.
So, to really grasp how this happened, we have to set the stage. The 8th century Mediterranean was a world in massive transition. It was a geopolitical chessboard where vast empires were rising and classical powers were crumbling. And if we look at the two major players here, the contrast is just staggering. On the northern side of the Mediterranean, you have Visigothic Hispania. It's an old kingdom, but it's completely fractured, plagued by civil war, brutal succession crises, and deep societal unrest. Meanwhile, on the southern shores, moving swiftly across North Africa, is the Umayyad Caliphate. It is unified, rapidly expanding, and successfully consolidating its newly conquered territories under one centralized administrative banner.
Okay, let's dive into this internal chaos, because this is exactly what made the Iberian Peninsula so ripe for conquest. In 710 CE, the Visigothic king Witiza dies. Now, the monarchy isn't strictly hereditary, so an opportunistic noble named Roderick, the Duke of Baissa, usurps a throne. And this immediately sparks a civil war with Witiza's heirs. On top of that, the Visigothic state is intensely divided by religion. They are brutally persecuting their Jewish populations and the remaining Arian Christians. Outmatched at home, the ousted heirs of Witiza begin desperately seeking external allies.
And that brings us to Count Julian. He's the Byzantine or Visigothic lord of Ceuta, which was an isolated Christian outpost on the North African coast. The sources tell us Julian had a deep, personal grievance against King Roderick, allegedly involving the mistreatment of his daughter at the royal court. Seeing a golden opportunity for revenge, Julian strikes a deal with the Umayyad forces. He provides the merchant ships necessary to cross the treacherous Strait of Gibraltar, along with crucial intelligence on Visigothic blind spots. He literally hands them the keys to the kingdom.
Chapter 2. The Commander's Ascent. Rise of Tariq.
So, who was the man actually chosen to turn this intelligence into an invasion? Well, Tariq ibn Ziyad's rise is a masterclass in early Islamic social mobility. He wasn't born into Arab nobility at all. In the late 7th century, he was likely enslaved during the North African conflicts, but he was freed, converted to Islam, and proved himself to be an absolutely brilliant tactician. The Umayyad governor, Musa ibn Nusayr, recognized his immense talent, appointing him to command the Berber vanguard in 708 CE, and ultimately naming him governor of Tangiers by 710 CE. Tariq knew the land, he knew his men, and he was hungry for history.
7,000. I want you to keep this number in mind. When Tariq finally gets the green light to cross into Europe, he doesn't bring some massive, unstoppable imperial armada. Not at all. His initial vanguard was remarkably small, just around 7,000 men, composed almost entirely of recent Berber converts to Islam. They were light, fast, and intensely motivated.
Chapter 3. Crossing to Gibraltar, the point of no return.
In the spring of 711 CE, the moment of truth finally arrives. The crossing of the 14-kilometer strait separating Africa and Europe was tense, perilous, and had to be incredibly stealthy. Done mostly under the cover of night using Julian's merchant vessels, it was a total logistical tightrope walk. When Tariq's forces finally landed, they consolidated their position at the foothills of a colossal limestone promontory. Now, what's really fascinating here is the linguistic footprint this moment left on the modern map. In Arabic, that rock became known as Jabal Tariq, literally meaning the mountain of Tariq. Say Jabal Tariq fast enough over a few centuries, and what do you get? Gibraltar. It permanently took his name.
Now, you've probably heard the famous legend, right? The story goes that the moment they landed, Tariq ordered his men to burn their transport ships, effectively eliminating any chance of retreat. It's an incredibly cinematic image, but historically, the reality is it was logistically impractical, and the myth was actually first recorded about 400 years later by the geographer Al-Idrisi. But while the ship burning might lack contemporary evidence, it serves as a stunningly accurate metaphor for the sheer resolve of this expedition.
To cement that incredible resolve, Tariq is said to have delivered one of the most famous battle orations, or khutbahs, in history. Standing before his 7,000 men, he declared, "People, where is there to escape? The sea is behind you and the enemy in front of you, and by God there is nothing for you now but courage and endurance."
Now, just like the burning ships, historians fiercely debate whether Tariq actually spoke these exact words. It's widely seen as a later Arabic literary invention used to glorify the conquest. But frankly, even if these specific words were penned by poets centuries later, they perfectly capture the epic do-or-die stakes of the moment. They were trapped in enemy territory, and the only way out was forward.
Chapter 4. The Battle of Guadalete, the Clash of Empires.
And that brings us to the absolute military climax of this story. July 711 CE. King Roderick realizes the threat and marches a massive army south to meet Tariq. So the crucial point here is the terrifying numerical disadvantage Tariq faced. While Tariq had managed to gather some reinforcements, bringing his total to maybe 12,000 men, Roderick fielded an army estimated anywhere from 25,000 to a staggering 100,000 troops. Tariq's force was light infantry and cavalry. Roderick had heavy infantry. On paper, there is no way Tariq should have survived this. It should have been a massacre.
But here's the thing, Tariq was a brilliant tactician. He utilized his highly mobile Berber cavalry, specifically these elite riders armored in light mail and turbans over metal caps, to launch rapid hit-and-run ambushes. He expertly exploited the rough terrain and the sheer fatigue of Roderick's massive, slow-moving army. And most importantly, he capitalized on Visigothic politics. Remember those rival noblemen we mentioned earlier? Many of them actually commanded the wings of Roderick's army, and mid-battle they simply abandoned him or switched sides.
What followed was, quite frankly, a total bloodbath. The Visigothic lines completely collapsed. In the absolute chaos, King Roderick was slain. His massive army was routed. In a single, devastating engagement, Tariq ibn Ziyad effectively decapitated the entire leadership of the Visigothic kingdom. The gate to Europe was kicked wide open.
Chapter 5. Birth of Al-Andalus, expanding the empire.
With the king dead and the army scattered, let's move to the map and see how this builds, because it is a breathtaking display of military opportunism. Tariq does not hesitate for a second. Step 1, he secures coastal ports like Carthage to ensure his supply lines are absolutely safe. Step 2, he splits his forces, dispatching lightning-fast detachments to capture major economic hubs like Córdoba and Sevilla. And Step 3, Tariq himself marches the main force directly to Toledo, the royal capital of the Visigoths, capturing it with almost no resistance. It was an absolute blitz that laid the groundwork for entirely new cultural centers.
Now, Tariq's success was so massive and so incredibly fast that it actually created political tension back home. In 712 CE, his superior, Musa ibn Nusayr, arrives in Spain with 18,000 heavily armed Arab troops. The historical sources strongly hint at deep jealousy from Musa over his former freedmen conquering an entire country essentially independently. But despite the friction between the two commanders, Musa's reinforcements consolidated the territory. Together, their conquests birthed the magnificent civilization of Al-Andalus, transforming cities like Córdoba into future global capitals of libraries, science, and art that would flourish for centuries.
Chapter 6. Legacies of Command, Echoes Through History. So, how do we measure a commander of this magnitude in the grand sweep of Islamic military history? Well, it brilliantly illustrates his strategic genius when we compare him to another titan, Saladin. Think about it. In 1187, Saladin, a Kurd, united Kurds and Arabs to crush the fractured Crusader states at the Battle of Hattin. 4 centuries earlier, Tariq, a Berber, united Berbers and Arabs to exploit the fractures of the Visigothic state. Both commanders use incredibly diverse coalitions and sheer opportunistic brilliance to permanently alter the balance of power in the Mediterranean.
Yet, history is rarely kind to its greatest architects, is it? By 714 CE, the Umayyad Caliph Al-Walid I, worried by the massive independent power his generals had amassed, recalled both Tariq and Musa back to Damascus. Caught in the complicated web of imperial court politics, they were stripped of their titles and their wealth. The legendary commander who crossed the sea and conquered a nation was completely sidelined, ultimately dying in relative obscurity.
It leaves us with a truly profound question to ponder.
Are empires built simply by the inevitable, slow march of time and geography? Or are they forged by the sheer will, the absolute audacity of those few who dare to cross a dark sea with no guarantee of return? Tariq ibn Ziyad's leap of faith changed the world forever, an undeniable testament to the power of a single, decisive moment in history. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the history around you.